All right, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel. Got a whole bunch of good crypto news stuff for you today. And I do have a number of things to cover, so this one might go for a little while. Who knows? But I do want to shout out real quick a PSA, if you will, FYI. Just a little warning to all of you that there are some YouTube channels going around that are entirely scams that seem fairly legitimate. And one of those is the Litecoin Foundation on YouTube. Now, I don't know if the Litecoin Foundation has an actual legitimate YouTube or if they don't have one at all. I don't know. But either way, this channel got a lot of views and it has more than one video. While the views are pretty low, they had quite a bit of live viewers. And this isn't the only one. So I just sort of cherry picked two of them. And it shows the Litecoin Summit in 2019. So these are all over. These were like on October 30th, but these have been going around quite a bit. And they're just scams. So it's basically just the audio, and this one's the actual video. But you can see down in the description, Litecoin continues to be a key player. You know, to celebrate the 8th birthday of Litecoin, you know, we're going to do an airdrop of 50,000. And the classic, you send us 5 and we will send you 50 back. I honestly don't know how people fall for these, and I'm not really trying to bash anyone. But these are always a scam. If anybody asks you to send them cryptocurrency and they will send you more back, that's the same as going up to somebody on the street and they say, hey, give me a $20 bill and in an hour I will send you $200. You just wouldn't believe that. In most cases, that's just never ever going to happen. So yeah, send 5 to 1,000 and get 50 to 10,000 back. Right. And there's just another one, and these have been going on for a while, and these were live, and I actually checked them out live, and there were people just chatting away and stuff in them. I didn't see any donations, because of course they're on the blockchain and there was no notifications, but you know, they even have a QR code and everything, and this is their Litecoin address. So they received 1,918 Litecoin, and then sent out 1,918. So obviously it was a scam because they would have had to send out a lot more than 1,918. But you could see it's always like 5 from people. Everyone was sending them 5 or 20 so that they could get back more. And it's just unfortunate that so many people sent them this, and how easy it was for them to just create a YouTube, essentially live stream the Litecoin Foundation, the Litecoin Summit or whatever, and receive a bunch. But moving on to the main story here, Bitcoin hailed as a success by China in a dramatic shift in attitude. Interesting. So China flip-flops more than I think any other country I've ever seen when it comes to cryptocurrency. And I'd say India is second place in that one. Makes sense. But so they, you know, sometimes they ban it, sometimes they talk about banning it, sometimes they unban it, sometimes they talk about that it's an industry that they don't want, but then don't do anything about it. But anyway, a state-run newspaper in China has published a front-page story hailing Bitcoin as the first successful application in blockchain technology. So I don't know if you need to hail it, because honestly, it's just a fact. But the praise marks a significant shift in Beijing's stance towards the cryptocurrency and comes as the country prepares to launch its own digital currency, which who knows if that's actually going to happen. So a lot of countries have been talking about launching their own. I think Turkey, China, Venezuela actually did it with the Petro, I think, but it's not really their actual like daily currency, so I don't know what's up with that. Anyway, Monday's edition of Xinhua, I think I said that right, went into detail about how Bitcoin and its underlying blockchain technology works, describing it as one of the hottest topics in recent years. China's been shown it's been slow to acknowledge the potential benefits of cryptocurrency. And as I stated yesterday and many times before, in September 2017, as Bitcoin was heading towards its record high price, Beijing introduced a ban on all cryptocurrency exchanges. I think that was when like Binance actually had to leave to go to Malta, to prevent citizens from purchasing digital currencies with Chinese yuan. So you can actually see that if you just bring up CoinMarketCap or any long-term Bitcoin chart. If you look at September 2017, we were nearly at 5,000. It was like 4,900 and some change. And because of that, after a couple weeks after that announcement, You could see 3,200 Bitcoin. Ethereum was, or excuse me, Litecoin was like at $92, and that was like its high ever at the time, and then it rocked all the way down to like $32 or something. And of course, we all know it went back up from there. But that just goes to show the effect that a government can have on cryptocurrency. While they can't ban it, they can certainly try, and it does really affect the price. If the United States was like, okay, no more cryptocurrency, it's banned, banned exchanges or banned the use of it, you would see a dramatic fall in Bitcoin. Not to say that Americans hold the most Bitcoin. I really don't know that statistic. It's probably China, but you can see that they can do some damage to it. Even Anthony Popolano was like, China is literally running front page stories about Bitcoin in their newspapers. Things are about to get very, very interesting. So currently the most important use of Bitcoin payments are black market transactions and dark web transactions, what the article states. But the feature also makes Bitcoin widely used in illegal transactions. But I always find that really silly because, honestly, Bitcoin is used by, I think Tom Lee said that he thinks it's about 500,000 people in the world that own Bitcoin, even though it's supposed to be like millions or like the low millions. And I kind of actually believe that. There's really not a lot of people that watch crypto YouTubers or buy crypto. I think it's actually a very small portion of the population of the planet. Even go up to your neighbor and be like, hey, what do you think about Bitcoin? They wouldn't know what it is most of the time. So this is good news at the very least. It's just a newspaper, so it's not necessarily the Chinese government saying this, but it is good news. And whenever China turns around to Bitcoin, that's when we're going to see a really true bull run. And it might just spike up in price and then go back down, but it is good news anyway. So moving on here, Bitcoin bull run due next week, according to difficulty adjustment. So this one, take it with a grain of salt, because I believe that by a couple weeks before the last Friday of this month, that Bitcoin will go down in price. We should see 79, 7,700, maybe even back to 73 like we saw. It just seems to be the case this entire year that at the end of every month, the last Friday of every month is when the CME Bitcoin futures expire. Now, that wouldn't mean too much because they are cash settled, cash bets. It's basically a horse race. Will Bitcoin go up? I will bet this much money if it does. And you don't get Bitcoin, you just get money when you're correct. So that kind of futures is fairly weird in the Bitcoin world, but I don't suppose it's anything new. So it doesn't really have that much of an effect. However, if you happen to have a lot of Bitcoin and then you shorted with CME or various other futures markets, if you will, you could dump all that Bitcoin on several different exchanges or just one that they take that data from, and then, poof, your short just successfully completed. And not only did you make money from selling your Bitcoin, you made even more by shorting it, and now you can just sort of do it again and rebuy in and pump the price back up. It's really a little bit more complicated than that, but honestly, not much of an oversimplification. So basically, in an early tweet, Plan B posted a chart of 7 years of Bitcoin adjustments. This showed that after every significant decrease in difficulty, which was followed by a significant increase identified by a red dot, and the decrease is identified by a blue dot, the price invariably went up. And we can see that in this little chart here. Every time there was a blue dot, we started to turn to red dots. But sort of hard to tell with this little chart. This one's a little bit better. After being asked why there was capitulation during the last bubble of 2017, Plan B suggested that, along with certain other occurrences, was not capitulation at all. Rather, it was a blip in a bull market following huge hash rate jumps, likely caused by old equipment being switched off after being replaced. He then revised his chart, analyzing the 9 years worth of Bitcoin history and coming up with a three-phase pattern to the red dots following the blue. And we should be at the blue now, so it should be going back up again. And that makes a lot of sense, actually, that with the hash rate jumps like that, is that there was other occurrences, of course, the price going down and some people capitulating, but when the greater S9 plus and miners, etc., were switched on, the old ones would be replaced and they wouldn't be offline. So you had this big jump, but then you had a slight decrease because of taking off the old inefficient miners. So don't get excited yet. because that's just a Chinese flaw in the theory. Since Plan B's first tweet, the expected difficulty adjustment has changed. Whilst it may be in plus 4% at the time, it has since fallen to around negative 0.8%. This, of course, will not give us a nice red dot to follow our blue, so it doesn't correspond to the pattern identified. And that's kind of hard in Bitcoin, identifying patterns, because honestly, most of the volume, etc., is whales most of the time. If you just look at something simple like the Coinbase Pro charts, you can see that whenever you see a big long green candle, check out its volume. It's usually like 400 or 500 Bitcoin in that 15-minute period, depending on the chart you have up. Whereas everything else is 10 to maybe 30 Bitcoin in a 15-minute period. So those are really, it really goes to show how much whales actually change the price and jack it up a couple thousand for a couple weeks, and then you could see them selling off. And it's not just that a bunch of people happen to all sell at the same time. That's just too much of a coincidence every time. It's just, everybody decide to sell, 10, 20 times the amount of Bitcoin in that exact 15-minute period is hard to believe every time. So that makes TA and et cetera, pretty hard with Bitcoin. So South Korean crypto exchange CEO jailed for 16 years. So according to Yonhap News, court in Seoul on Monday, so Kang Sok-jung, CEO of crypto exchange CoinUp, to 16 years in prison. The court found the crypto exchange chief guilty of orchestrating a $386 million crypto scam. Apart from Kang, also known as Cash Kang, good one, 7 other senior executives also bagged prison terms. The company's vice president received a 7-year sentence, while another high-ranking member of the exchange bagged an 11-year sentence. Other indicted senior executives saw prison terms between 6 and 9 years. According to the reports from the investigation, CoinUp promoted a fraudulent crypto investment scheme that promised 200% returns between 4 and 10 weeks. Oh, those 200% returns in such a short period of time. Those are never a scam. Are you kidding me? That's not much. Only 200%. An excerpt from the court judgment reads, the accused created a plausible appearance, including a magazine with a current president's composite picture, and portrayed the fraudsters in a deceptive, organized, and precise manner. Organization of the crimes, the number of victims, and the amount of damage show in the light of the truth that the sin is serious. So I'm not sure exactly what the scam is. Korea is pretty... South Korea is pretty closed off from the rest of the world in terms of their money transfer, at least in terms of the average person like myself. So I didn't know about this scam, but I honestly think it's good that people are actually starting to catch up to these crypto scams. And while some people would say, hey, we don't need any regulation in any way, shape, or form, maybe that's true, but hopefully the authorities actually start to catch on to these, and they have. There's been a number of people arrested because we had way too many crypto scams in the past without anybody getting arrested, and just millions of people losing so much money, and at least finally they're getting caught up with. So moving on to this one. This one might take a little bit, but this is 7 anonymous people in the crypto space. It's kind of interesting. So James A. Donald was an anonymous Canadian cypherpunk, the first person to comment on and critique Satoshi's white paper and theories. Donald argued that with Satoshi about scaling on more than one occasion. And this was so long ago that you didn't need scaling back then, probably at all. But somebody realized that you would need scaling. And detailed that he believed that Bitcoin needed a layer of account. We will need a layer of account money on top of the Bitcoin, supporting transactions of 100 thousandths the size of the smallest coin, and to support anonymity. Show me money on top of the account money. He said, I believe I've worked through all the little details over the last year and a half while coding it. And there were a lot of them. The functional details are not covered in the paper, but the source code is coming soon. I sent you the main files. So this was quite a while ago. This was on November 17th, 2008. Nakamoto sent Donald the Bitcoin source code for his review. I sent you the main files. Nakamoto stated at the time, there have been numerous theories that claim Donald and Nakamoto are essentially the same people, and the creator was merely talking to himself during the emails. However, most of the James A. Donald theories that tie him to Nakamoto have been debunked and thrown out the window. So kind of interesting that somebody was telling, Satoshi before Bitcoin even existed, hey, we're going to need scaling. And that's sort of the problem that we're running into today. Thamos, the owner of Reddit Bitcoin, bitcointalk.org, is a well-known character in the crypto space. Thamos has been involved with Bitcoin since the very early days. In recent years, he's been accused of mass censorship. The censorship accusations derive from the scaling debate There's lots of evidence that suggests Thamos and the other Reddit Bitcoin moderators repeatedly blocked all discussions that were for increasing the block size. So there is a real big debate about that, and some people just refuse to increase the block size. So no one knows how Thamos accumulated so much power with all the Bitcoin websites under his thumb. Prior to 2011, there were 4 Reddit Bitcoin moderators, and the owner at Slago was wholeheartedly against the censorship of free speech. And the Bitcoin community at the time in 2011 got very upset and he had planned to sell Reddit Bitcoin and was convinced to give the Bitcoin talk.owner Thamos, the owner of Reddit Bitcoin owner Thamos, still operates the same Bitcoin-centric web portals to this day, but apparently nobody knows who he is. And then there's Artfors. The infamous Artfors appeared as a pseudonym on bitcointalk.org between July 2010 and 2012. Laszlo Hanyeks, and Artfors were considered the first 2 people to leverage GPU miners when mining Bitcoin. So for a while, you could only mine it on your CPU, and it took about a year for people to come out with GPUs. And for a while, it was somewhat secret. You couldn't get it. And it didn't take very long for you to get it, but people were definitely mining on their GPUs somewhat in secret for a while. So Artfor showed the world his art farm. And at the time, the miner said he generated 1,700 Bitcoin in 6 days. I had 24 Radeon 5970s up until about late summer of 2011. Artfor told the Bitcoin community in February 11th, 2012. So this guy had been mining for quite a while. I think you could get the GPU miners way before that, before 2012. But this guy had been mining for a long time and may have been one of the first to actually do that. Between the summer of 2010 and the last time the community saw Artfors in 2012, he was accused of commanding most of the Bitcoin hash rate during those years. For instance, on October 3rd, 2010, Thamos explained that the developer's art farm could be processing 20 to 30% of the hash rate because you process so much faster on a GPU than you do on a CPU that having a farm of 24 GPUs or something like that it would be the equivalent of, who knows, 10 times that amount in CPUs, at least at the time. Artfor told the community another story and said he only captured about 1% of the network's processing power, but it could have been upwards of 20 to 30%, maybe like 10%. Artfor wrote the community for the last time that February 2012, and no one's heard from him since. And then another anonymous person, Sonny King, with an interest in cryptocurrency history, is the software developer Sonny King, creator of Purecoin. King is known as the grandfather of the proof of stake because Purecoin was the first hybrid proof of work and proof of stake system. The unknown blockchain engineer was not only created Purecoin but also developed the PrimeCoin project, which uses a proof of work mechanism while it searches for prime numbers at the same time. So there was another thing too with Purecoin. When Purecoin came out, I think it was like the first, second cryptocurrency to be made, something like that. It might have been, I think it was something like that, and it actually had like a combined proof of stake. It had like dual mining with Bitcoin, because at the time Bitcoin had sort of a problem that when the first couple of cryptocurrencies came out after it, that people would switch too much. And when you only have a couple different choices, the problem is that all the hash rate, if the second coin is more profitable and you're currently on Bitcoin, everybody switches to the second coin, which dangerously drops the hash rate of Bitcoin. And so they ended up creating I think it might have been with Namecoin that they actually created a dual mining so that you could mine both Namecoin and Bitcoin at the same time, which I don't think is a thing anymore. But I think it was actually Namecoin, not Purecoin. But Purecoin was one of the first as well. And Brandon Ches, for a number of years, the owner of CoinMarketCap, Brandon Ches kept an extremely low profile until he was doxxed by the Wall Street Journal on January 23rd, 2018. Since the site was created, CoinMarketCap.com swiftly became a top digital currency website, but no one really knew who was behind the web portal. This was until Ches decided to delist the exchange rates of South Korean crypto trading platforms on January 7th, 2018, which I remember that, and it just sort of rocked the price of everything down, at least in the average if you looked at it CoinMarketCap. Recently sat down for a fireside chat Ches recently sat down with the anonymous Sonny King during the Capital Conference. Behind a curtain, the two silhouetted figures discussed proof of stake consensus, Bitcoin, and quantum computing, and they kind of look a little bit Amish, or maybe like Orthodox Jewish, sitting behind that screen there with the weird caps on. Interesting. But that's all I'm going to talk about. If you guys want to read the rest of them, there was a couple more. It's just on bitcoin.com, which I completely despise this website, but sometimes it has a couple good articles here or there. It is a Bitcoin Cash shill website, which if you like Bitcoin Cash, fair enough, but it's just a little misleading in my opinion. Moving on to CoinMarketCap, we have 65.9% dominance, so slightly less than yesterday when I made a video at 66%. So not too much of a change, obviously, but it seems like Bitcoin going down a little bit more than some of the altcoins. We'll give a little refresh here. We're at 8,800. And again, some people think we're about to go up from here, but I kind of think different. I think in a week and a half here, we're going to start seeing a big dip because of people dipping to prepare for the last Friday of the month. But hopefully that trend starts to change soon, because that trend in itself has sort of prevented us from moving up. But maybe at the same time, it's kept us stable. Maybe at the same time, it goes to 10 or 11,000, and then the whales sort of dump so that they can short it, and then they pump it right after, and we stay in this zone. Who knows where we would be without that? Maybe it would be super high or super low. I don't know, but hopefully we'll buck the trend soon, and we'll go somewhere eventually. But it does seem like the last Friday of every month, with the futures expiration, we do have a dip about 5 to 7 days before that, sometimes just a day before it. But, look at the charts, study it for yourself, take a look at it. Not all the months exactly correlate to that, but you can see somewhat of a correlation. But that's all I have for you guys. Nothing too crazy going on in the market. But make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, my social media in the description below. But as usual, I will see you guys next time.